Hello guys, and welcome back to Joe's Ventures. And today we're doing part 198 of our Planet Zoo mod spotlights, where we take a look at some of the wonderful mods people are making and use them to talk about some of the wonderful biodiversity that we share our world with. So today we've got quite an interesting assortment of animals, as we do per usual. We've got a couple birds, got a couple canids, we've got an exhibit animal. The next few episodes will have quite a few exhibit animals. That's going to be quite cool. I try to limit myself to 3 just to make sure that it doesn't get clogged up. But we've got, yes, mentioned a couple birds, and we've got an extinct animal today. I know we always love an extinct animal, and that's the one that you see on the tin, on the thumbnail. We'll get into that one soon. But we're going to be starting off with everyone's favourite giant snake, the green anaconda. So let's have a look at these guys in here. How amazing. Look, this one's done by Scott. He always does a really awesome job. I'll have a look at this one since he looks really, really nice in there. So, or I could pick another one. No, he's way too hidden. We'll use you. You look way nice. I love a good anaconda. So this is the green anaconda. So Anaconda minaris. These guys are also known as the giant anaconda, the emerald anaconda, or the common water boa. These guys are a species of semi-aquatic boa species that come from South America and the Caribbean island of Trinidad. And what kind of sets this guy apart from most other snakes, that it is the largest, heaviest, and second longest snake, second only to the reticulated python in length, in the world. While there was no subspecies currently recognized, there was 2 different species described recently, but I don't think that's held up to a lot of scrutiny. But that's still quite interesting. And like all boas, they aren't venomous, but they are constrictors, so they will kind of use their bodies and wrap around their prey. The term anaconda often refers to the species. The term can apply to other members of a genus, like the yellow anaconda. And these fossils date back to the late Pleistocene, so that's quite cool. So they're first named in the 10th edition of Systematica Natura by Carl Linnaeus, which in the genus Boa, that included boa constrictors. But then in 1830, Johann Greg Walder erected this new genus, Anaconda, for these kind of animals as well. And the scientific name is very interesting. Minaris means Minura means of mice, so it means like preying on mice or mouse grey colours or something like that interpretation, but they don't really eat mice at all. But yes, these guys are the world's longest, not the longest, heaviest, and one of the world's largest snakes. So they reach up to a length of about 5.21 meters, or about 17 feet long. The more typical mature specimens range about 5 meters or 16 feet for adult females, while males are with a mean length, females a mean length of about 4.6 meters or 15 feet. And generally, the females are much larger than the males, and the males will average about 3 meters or about 9 feet, 10 inches long. Though weights are typically less well studied, they can be between 30 to 80 kilograms or 66 to 176 pounds in typical adults. And as I mentioned, they are the largest snake native to the Americas, and although they're slightly shorter than the reticulated python, they are much bulkier built snakes, so even though they may be a bit shorter, they're definitely heavier. The bulk of a 5.2 meter long green anaconda is comparable to that of a 7 meter long reticulated python. And there has been, reports of some that are up to 11 meters, potentially even existing, but those claims are very much, not very well verified. But the largest kind of recorded one was just under 100 kilos, so still very big animals. So the colour pattern you can see here, they've got like a very olive green background colour with black blotches along the body. They actually have a head that is relatively narrow compared to the rest of the body. And you have a distinctive orange stripe you can see going down there. You'll probably get a better look on this one. You can see that orange stripe going down. I'll actually have a look from an angle because it probably shows it off better. The eyes are set high on the skull that allow the snake to see while out of the water while swimming and exposing its body without exposing its body. And their jaws bones splay open like other snakes that allow them to swallow large prey. And their windpipe in their mouth that actually allows them to swallow their prey. And allow them to breathe while they're doing so. So yeah, very similar to other snakes. In terms of its distribution and habitat, these guys are found in South America, east of the Andes, in Colombia, Venezuela, the Guianas, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, Brazil, Trinidad, and as far south as northern Paraguay. And they were added to in 2021 the prohibited list of non-native species in Florida, so that's quite interesting as well. And there have been some wild individual specimens that have been observed in Florida. They haven't really been found to have a population like those Burmese pythons. And in terms of their habitat, though, anacondas live in swamp, marshes, lagoons, and slow-moving streams, in tropical rainforests mainly, in seasonal flooded savannas in the Orinoco and Amazon basins. They're quite cumbersome on land, but they are water puppies. They do love the water. And their eyes and nasal openings on top of their head, they're pretty much like a crocodile, that allow them to wait underwater for prey while their body's submerged. In terms of their behavior, they're mostly nocturnal and aquatic. They float underwater and are known to swim quite well. And when prey passes by to stop to drink, the anaconda will strike without eating or swallowing it and coil its body and constricts it and kills it. There's some debate what the constriction actually does. Some think they crush it, or some suffocate it, or some like increase that blood pressure. But whatever way they do it, when they constrict, that kind of kills their prey. But in terms of their feeding, they are apex predators in the ecosystem, and they feed on a wide variety of prey. Anything they can pretty much overpower, including fish, amphibians, birds, mammals, and reptiles. Particularly large anacondas can consume tapirs, deer, peccaries, caimans, and jaguars, and capybaras. So quite a wide food range, but these are really not very often eaten. Juvenile anacondas will feed on small birds and caiman, things like that, but anything pretty much smaller than them. So they tend to get prey that's a little bit smaller. Pretty much anything smaller than them to a decent margin, and they may take on larger prey, but it's not very often just because they're at risk of injury, and some will actually feed on carrion and other anacondas, usually inside and around the water. And large anacondas can go weeks to months without food because of their low metabolism, so they may eat very sparsely. And many local stories and legends record these guys feeding on humans, but there's very little evidence of that. So there even was a documentary trying to do it, but I don't think you'll get eaten by an anaconda, I'm afraid, if that is something that you'd want to happen. But as an apex predator, they don't have many predators, but they are part of the diet of animals like jaguars, black caimans, American and Orinoco crocodiles. But in terms of their reproduction, we've got to make more little anacondas for the world. They are solitary up until the mating season, which occurs during the raining season, and it can last several months, usually from April to May. Typically, females leave pheromone trails for males to follow, but how males track them is unclear. These pheromones may be airborne, as the theory is supported by observations of females that remain motionless while the male moves towards her. Male anacondas often flick their tongues to sense chemicals that signal the presence of a female, so they use that Jacobson's organ and all that. Often many males will kind of find the same female and wrap around her to try and copulate. They're called breeding balls, and up to about 12 males can be part of these balls. And they can stay in this position for 2 to 4 weeks as males wrestle in slow motion to try and mate with the female. During mating, though, the male uses their spurs to arouse the female, and they press against her cloaca and try to get her, get her ready to get busy. And only the strongest and largest male will win, but the female may choose another male if they are much larger and stronger. So there's a little bit of element of both the winner and then also the female gets to choose, of course. Courtship and mating occurs almost exclusively in the water as well. Typically, mating is followed by a gestation of about 6 to 7 months, and this species is ovoviviparous, which means they give birth to live young. Typically, litters of anacondas can be between 20 to 40 offspring, but as many as 100 can be possible. After giving birth, the female actually may lose up to half her body weight. Typically, neonates babies are about 70 to 80 centimeters, or about 2 feet 4 inches or 2 feet 7 inches, and will receive no parental care. But because of their small size, they often fall prey to lots of other species. So they kind of that's why they have so many babies. They don't give parental care. So they have many babies and hope that a couple make it to adulthood. That's kind of how it goes. Sorry, just needed a cough. But if they survive, they grow quickly until sexual maturity, about a few years old, and then they start to grow a bit slower. And they can also, there was a litter of green anaconda born in West Medfield's Safari Park that give birth to 3 young through parthenogenesis, so that's quite cool. In terms of longevity, they live in the wild for about 10 years, but they have potentially live in captivity up to 30 years. With the Guinness World Record for the oldest living snake is a green anaconda that's 37 years and 317 days old by the Monte Carlo Bird and Reptile Park in Johannesburg, South Africa. And as I mentioned, they are quite popular in pop culture, being the biggest snake in the world. You know, there's that movie Anaconda, which is very inaccurate, but a lot of that is kind of because they think it's the biggest snake, and oh my gosh, it can easily overpower a man. But there's really no evidence that they do eat people or could overpower people. Um, anyway, there's no recorded evidence of that, so it is a bit of a hearsay things. But yeah, still really really cool. Sorry, I need to cough again. But anyway, really, really cool species, and another great one done by Scott. You know, how can you not love Scott's mods? Always a winner. So next up, we're going to be carrying on with another Great Cakes mod. We do love Great Cakes. Here we've got the Philippine Scoops Owl. So that's a juvenile. We'll have a look at the adults. Here's an adult over here. So the Philippine Scoop Owl. Scoops Owl is also known as the Luzon Lowland Scoops Owl. These guys are a common owl species endemic to the Philippines and belong to the family of typical owls. They're also called the Otis whitehead, the whitehead Scoops owl, and other many different species as well. And lots of other species were considered as part of the kind of Philippine owl, but they're now kind of classified all as different species. The Philippine Scoops Owl is a fairly small to mid-sized species of owl, but it's arguably the largest true species of scoop owl. Adults measure between 23 to 28 centimeters or 9 to 11 inches, and their body mass is between 125 to 310 grams, or about 4.4 to 10 ounces, while females are often considerably bigger than males. A distinguishing feature of this owl is its large ears that stand upright on the top of its head. I don't know what you're doing there, but we'll have a look at this one over here. That gives you a good example. You can see those kind of big ears going on there. They also have big eyes, and they're dark with red, orange, colours to them. And their ear tufts as well also have a similar pattern. And their forehead is whitish, and then they've also got this big facial disc, which is typical of other owls. That gives it an interesting colour as well. So there are 3 different subspecies technically, but I'm not sure how actually well supported they are. And they're mostly small colour differences as well, and maybe some size differences. I'm not going to go too much into them. And there's not really much a significant difference between male and female scoop owls, though females tend to be larger. And the owlets do have like very fluffy rufous feathers. And once they reach the sub-adult stage, they will get a bit, more dark like this. We'll have a look at the babies when we talk about breeding. In terms of taxonomy, they are in the family Strigiformes, which includes the owls, and the Strigidae, which is true owls, and that is the largest family of owls that include, your typical more famous owls. The Otis genus, which is the scoop owls, is a very large genera of owls. It has about 50 species, and yet the species are one of the smallest. And this is one of the largest of the scoop owls as well. And these Philippine scoop owls are only found in the Philippines, and they are prone to speciation because there's lots of little islands and things like that, so they're very rich in terms of biodiversity. And they formed about 35 million years ago and led to evolution of different species of, Otis megalodonus and things like that. So a lot of these really interesting species have kind of come from that as well. In terms of their habitat and distribution, they're found in rainforests, mature woodlands, and forest edges are typical habitats where they can be found. They are mostly observed in the understory, but rarely go above 1,000 meters in altitude. They have been reported on Montedanta Island or Luzon a bit higher. And they make a nest typically set up about 2 meters above the ground, and even though they're mostly understory arboreal species. This one is endemic to the Philippine archipelago, but the 3 subspecies can be found in different areas. So the type subspecies, which probably this one's based on, is found in Luzon and other islands. And then there's the Negro species within the Negros Islands. But not too much difference between them. In terms of the behaviour, they are sedentary birds with a limited home range. The fact that different subspecies is found on different islands limits interspecific competition as well. So that's quite different. In terms of scoop owls, they are a nocturnal species, somewhat typical of other owls. They vocalize mostly at night, and they correspond with long and powerful notes, typical kind of owls, which is very interesting. And there's no difference in calls between the males and females. In terms of their diet, though, they prey on insects and small mammals. During the night time, they will perch on trees where when the land is relatively open, which offers them up a better view of their surrounding prey. They're quite ferocious and specialize in tearing flesh, with their raptorial claws, curved beak, and excellent hearing and sight, making them quite good predators. They've observed killing victims by crushing their head and breaking every other bone in the body, and finally swallowing the animal whole. This method has cost the lives of many juveniles, actually, that realize, oh, I can't actually swallow this whole. And but yeah, they are also feed a lot on spiders, but they can eat quite a few things, pretty much anything smaller than them, really. And here's reproduction. We'll talk about the reproduction by having a look at the cute little baby scoop owl. So these guys are often spotted alone, but have been seen in monogamous pairs. There's not a lot of information is known about the reproduction, but they're thought to have bred throughout the year, and you typically will lay 1 to 2 eggs annually. Sexual maturity is reached about 2 years of age, but their lifespan is unknown. One juvenile with 2 adults have been witnessed multiple times, which supports the notion they are monogamous birds and display parental care. And they construct nests in tree cavities, but also the roots of dead trees on the ground. And as I mentioned, they've got this very much rufous colour that they have compared to the adults, and then they'll kind of grow into that. In terms of their conservation status, they are considered least concern. They are still have quite a large range and are locally common, though they are believed to be in decline due to habitat loss because of logging and mining activities and agriculture, and they also caught for the pet trade. But luckily they are found in many forest parks around the place, so they are still least concerned, doing okay, but they're probably declining, which is a little bit sad, but they're still doing okay for the most part. Another really cool species done by Great Cakes. We're going to move on to another species done by Great Cakes. We have got, let me just pull out of there, I don't know what's got, look at this. We have got the southern bald ibis, also done by Great Cakes. We always love a good Great Cakes. All them hanging around here. So the southern bald ibis, or Megalictus calvus, they're a large bird found in open grasslands or semi-desert areas in the mountains of southern Africa. And traditionally they were more closely related to its counterpart in northern Africa, the waterup. But this species has a very restricted home range that actually only found in the southern tips of South Africa's highland and mountainous regions. So, as I mentioned, they were described initially by French polymorph George Louis Louric Comte de Buffon in 1781 from the Cape of Good Hope. And they become the family Therizonidae, which was a group of birds that were kind of found everywhere in the world except for Oceania. And the group is defined by lack of feathers on their face, and they're also called they're comprised of ibises and spoonbills as that group. In terms of how these guys look, though, they are an uncommon bird endemic to the highlands of southern Africa. And in southern Africa, the species total population is only estimated to be about 4,600 birds. But in the 2020s, it was estimated to be between 6,500 to 8,000 birds, with a breeding population between 1,600 to 2,000 birds. However, little is known otherwise. The plumage is dark green with iridescent streaks of green, as you can kind of see there. Some little nice bits of fleck of colour in them that are green, violet, and bronze. The neck displays long feathers that are blue-green in shade. In adults, its shoulders display shades of copper. However, in juveniles, it's primarily a dull grey colour. And the bird's Latin name kind of means bald old man and refers to its featherless, wrinkled head and face. And the head is the key feature that distinguishes it, as they have bearish white skin. And the top of the head, they have a kind of red-shaped crown, which is quite interesting. And their eyes are also kind of a different colour as well, which is interesting. So in terms of their distribution habitat, they have a very restricted range. They're only found in South Africa. They're confined to the eastern regions of Africa, which is restricted to highland and mountain regions. Their range extends from the highlands of Leslo into the Ishwastadi, and these birds migrate short distances within their home range. They are cliff nesters and breed on open areas, mountain faces, as well as river gorges, and sometimes around waterfalls. Their breeding habitat is comprised mainly of mountain grasslands that range from altitude from about 1,200 to 2,000 meters above sea level, and the grass areas are labelled as soil due to their low nutritional value due to the forage, like some are due to previous grazing of mammals. The southern bald ibis is a bird that feeds and roosts in large groups. They travel in groups of up to about 100 individuals to find suitable foraging areas. They are insectivores, so they eat mainly insects and other small invertebrates that are found in burnt grasslands as well. And they live, as we mentioned kind of that before. Vocalizations are a relatively quiet bird. They are noted to make like a weak gobbling sound. And their now old Afrikaans name is Wilde Kalkoen, means wild turkey. And this bird is most boisterous in nesting areas where they do have a high-pitched call that is reminiscent of a turkey. In terms of its diet, they are insectivorous and they feed on a wide variety of other small terrestrial invertebrates. They are a forager, alternating between feeding on harvested maize fields, overgrazed pastures, and burnt grasslands. They pick on the ground. The main component of their diet is the maize stalk borer, and the bird will also turn over feces and leave to find caterpillars, beetles, earthworms, snails, and even sometimes frogs, small dead mammals, and birds. Through July and August, though, before laying their eggs, they are found foraging in maize fields. In the second half, they can be found when they're incubating between maize fields, grasslands, and burnt grasslands. Grazed pastures, I mean. And during their nesting phase, they can be found foraging in maize fields, but more frequently in ploughed fields. So that's kind of their seasons. Probably due to availability of food to make it easier, and being able to be close to food so they can come back and bring it to their chicks. So in terms of reproduction, they are as I mentioned, nest on cliffs, and they hard to observe them because they nest so high. However, they do breed predominantly in colonies, with some pairs deciding to nest away from the rest. The females will lay their eggs anywhere from late July to mid-October. Following this, the young develop feathers around mid-October and into the month of December. And you can see that's the babies here. We'll have a look at them since they've joined their parents. The nests are made of mostly sticks and grass, and on average the collection of these materials begin at about 2 weeks before the first egg is laid. Once the first egg is laid, though, incubation takes about 26 to 32 days, and the incubating birds change their position and rotate the eggs more frequently, around 3 days before they hatch. And once hatched, the chicks will spend the first 7 to 10 days feeding from their parents via regurgitation. In about 35 days, the young will leave the nest to wander, and after 40 to 50 days, they are able to fly, but spend most of their time on ledges and cliffs of their nests. So in terms of their conservation, they are considered near threatened by the IUCN. However, there's no immediate threat of the species going extinct. They are naturally kind of considered not very common, so it's probably not too many changes there. But the main threats they face in declines is human disturbance of their breeding sites and the degradation of their habitats. But because most of their breeding sites occur on a privately owned land, with not many in reserves, they could easily, they're often not that much protection. Therefore, a large population of their population is dependent on private landowners. And furthermore, another threat is adult birds may be captured in order to collect their eggs and nestlings for food and medicine by some African tribal practices. And the hunting of these birds has also been popular in farming populations to supplement their meat supplies, and local hunting is considered a threat. But other than that, they are doing okay. They're still, not very common birds, but that's all right. They don't need to be common. Another really cool species we get to talk about, that is the southern bald ibis, done by Great Cakes Mod. And we've got a new modder on the scene today who's done another cool species. We've got a few canids today. We've got 3 canids, actually. I misspoke by saying 2. Here we've got by Kanu, who's a new modder, who's done a couple mods now, and this is their second mod. This is the Bengal Fox. So Vulpes bengalis. They're also known as the Indian fox. So they're a fox endemic to the Indian subcontinent, from the Himalayan foothills of Nepal to southern India, and as southern eastern Pakistan and eastern India into southeastern Bangladesh. So they're a relatively small fox with an elongated muzzle, long pointed ears, and long bushy tail. The pelt ranges in colour from buff to silvery grey with an oval grizzled effect, but their pelt is mostly greyish or paler, either though their legs tend to be a bit more redder or brownish. So they're more dainty in build than the red fox, and they can be readily recognised by their bushy black tip tail, which is about 50 to 60% of their body length. The backs of their ears are kind of like a dark margin, dark brown dark margin with white inside. The ears have the same colour around the nape or maybe darker, but they're not having a dark patch as in red foxes. They've got a pointy muzzle with a dark, which may be dark smudged marge along their upper part of the eyes there. They have very extensive coat variation that depends both on the individuals and in seasons. That generally varies from grey to pale brown. The head to body length is about 18 inches or 46 centimetres with a 10 inch or 25 centimetre long tail. The typical weights being 5 to 9 pounds. So, in terms of its distribution habitat, they're endemic to the Indian subcontinent. As I mentioned, they're kind of found all across there. Historical records suggest them being in the southeast regions of Kerala and Chattogram during the 1980s, but there's no been sightings there. But their ranges are bordered by the Himalayas and Indus River, And they tend to favour semi-arid, flat and undulating land, bush and short grassland habitats. They avoid dense forests, steep terrains, or tall grasslands or true deserts. They are relatively widespread in low rainfall areas and usually in scrub, thorny forests or short grasslands. So they tend to be habitat generalists but show a strong preference for semi-arid, short grassland habitats, which is interesting. So in terms of their behaviour, they, like other foxes, they are crepuscular and nocturnal, with individuals may be coming out during the day, during the cool periods, that they typically spend their warmer daylight hours under vegetation or subterranean dens. They have 3 different types of dens. They have a basic compact den with 2 openings that are used for short rest periods, complex dens with multiple openings, and then dens under rock crevices and rocks and things like that. The basic social unit of these guys is a breeding pair, so they do form a pair bond that can last for many years, with larger aggregations may actually occur with grown pups linger longer than average, so they do sometimes can be a little bit more social, which is interesting. And female Bengal foxes were reported to share dens during lactation, and 4 adult foxes were seen emerging from the same den, so they may be a little bit more social than we give them credit for. So in terms of their diet, they are omnivorous and opportunistic feeders. They will feed on insects, small mammals, reptiles, birds, and fruits. So they'll eat like little field mice, gerbils, miners, partridge, larks, as well. Those are the kind of, and termites, ants, spiders. Those are more of their common prey. Less common prey includes ground lizards, rat snakes, oriental rat snakes, Indian hares, and hedgehogs, though they also feed on mangoes and jabu and bunions and all sorts of different plants and animals and things like that. So quite a varied diet. In terms of the communication, they do make a wide range of vocalizations. They have like a chattering cry that actually plays quite a significant role in establishing their territory, and they may also use it as a warning call. They also growl, whimper, whine, and make sounds very similar to dogs and other foxes. And they don't appear to have latrinal behavior similar to other canids, where they all poo in the same spot. So they don't seem to do that. In terms of their reproduction, though, they form long-term monogamous bonds, believed to, but the suspicion is based on scarce evidence. And extra pair copulations are known to occur. But during the breeding season, males will vocalize intensely during the night and into dawn and dusk. And throughout most of their range, the mating season occurs in December to January. And after a gestation period of about 40 to 50 days, you get these really cute little guys. No, that's not you. We want to have a look at you. These cute little guys come out. How adorable. Typically 2 to 4 pups are born in a den, and both parents will participate in pup rearing and protection, and aggregations of grown foxes and den sites can be recorded when dispersal's been delayed, but they also do kind of help, the next clutch or next, batch of litter of babies. And pups may sometimes be nursed by multiple females, but the relationship between them is uncertain. During the day, they tend to rest under shrubs and bushes, except for summers where they rest in the den. Play between pups is typical within the first 3 months, jumping and playing with each other. The adult male sometimes plays with the young, and in northwestern the young foxes are scattered during the monsoon season, when the opportunities are plentiful. And the pups are fully weaned at about 3 to 4 months of age, and then emerge from their den, with pup mortality actually being quite high during the first few months of their life, which is quite sad, but that is the nature of life. But in terms of their threats, they are a common species. I believe they're considered least concern. They are definitely considered least concern, but they do face a variety of threats. They're usually in low densities across their range, and populations do fluctuate quite a bit due to disease and prey availability, which can cause local population declines. Any human disturbances can be tolerated, but with an increase of populations in humans and conversion of their habitat, their habitat is being continually reduced, and they then face, local extirpation due to these factors. Lack of habitat protection is probably the greatest threat for these foxes, as less than 2% of their potential habitat is actually protected. They are also hunted for skin and flesh, as well as conversion of their habitats affect their population. And then parts of their body are used in traditional Indian medicines, so that can be a big issue as well. But other than that, they are doing mostly pretty well, which is always good to hear. So that's by Kamu, who did a really, really good job. Nice new fox to have a look at. But next up, we've got Level Wolf, who's come back with a couple species. We're going to kind of go through, one's a subspecies and one is the Red Wolf, which we've already covered a couple times. So I'm going to give the quick lowdown on them. So here we've got the Mountain Coyote, and I'm going to say this one came out rather beautifully. I'm definitely a big fan of this. So the Mountain Coyote is Canis latens letus, or lentis, or lestes. So these guys, general appearance, have actually a large collie dog. They have a head to body length of about 30 to 33 inches, with a long tail, with hairs 12 to 15 inches, and things like that. So, the area interesting about the average mountain coyote. So the average mountain coyote measures about 45 inches from tip to the nose to tip of the tail, with the tail being about 30 inches. And the weight of a male is sometimes about 25 pounds, though some exceed this weight, while many animals trapped in late fall will weigh considerably less, with females being typically a little bit later, a little bit lighter. One of the main differences that sets mountain coyotes apart from other coyotes is they always have kind of a denser coat or woollier coat compared to the valley subspecies of the same at the same season. The coat of the mountain coyote is there are relatively few coarse guard hairs and more fine under hairs, so that kind of makes them look more woolly, while valley subspecies is more hairy, which is quite interesting. So these guys typically range upward irregularly and above the timberlines. They can be found up at 11,000 feet, and they tend to live in Yosemite area. That's typically where they're found. Yosemite section is kind of where they're typically found. And then not really that different compared to... So the mountain coyotes compared to the valley coyotes, broad description, they are much more of a hunter of large active sports of prey. So these guys tend to prefer to get its prey through capture in the open or by digging it out, and there's less of a carrion feeder compared to the other kind of subspecies as well. But yeah, include a wide variety of items they'll eat, so they're very similar to other types of other subspecies of coyotes, not too different. But a really, really cool mod. Nice to see some variations within them. Have a look, there's the mountain coyote, robust from the state of Montana, Colorado, Wyoming, Utah, California, Oregon, and Washington. So they're kind of found around the Yosemite, in those kind of mountains. So you can see like another rocky area that's where their population comes from. The thicker fur, most of the other things, they are one of the many different subspecies or different populations of these wolves. And I gotta say, I really love that kind of woollier look they've just given to the Frontier one. It looks really, really nice. I'm definitely a big fan of this one. And you gotta have a look at the cute little babies. Well, that's not what we wanted. Here's what we want. Look at the cute little babies. Definitely a big fan. So another great one by Level Wolf. But we're going to move on quick because there isn't too much to say that's not related to other coyotes of these guys. They're basically just woolly mountain coyotes. But next up, we have got another Level Wolf's mod who's come back after like years to create some pretty awesome mods. Here we've got Level Wolf's Red Wolf Remaster. So this is the Red Wolf, or Canis rufus. These guys are a type of canid native to the southeastern US, and they're kind of in between the size of a grey wolf and a coyote. So they're a bit bigger than a coyote, a bit smaller than a grey wolf. In terms of their kind of conservation as well, there is debate whether even actually a species or just coyote-coy wolf hybrid population, but that we'll get into. So historically, they were found throughout the southeastern and south central United States, from the Atlantic Ocean to central Texas, and pretty much that eastern side of the US. But they were nearly driven to extinction by the mid-1900s due to aggressive predator control programs, habitat destruction, and extensive hybridation with coyotes. It's kind of a big issue there, because coyotes were initially restricted to the Great Plains, but due to a lot of that predator control, a lot of populations managed to expand because there were no wolves keeping them restricted, so they were able to expand quite a bit. So, in terms of their kind of description, they are typical of canis, as I mentioned. They're kind of in between the size between a coyote and a grey wolf. They get to about 136 to 165 centimeters in length, or about 53 to 65 inches, and weigh between 20 to 39 kilograms. The males average about 29 kilograms, and females about 25 kilograms. So between 44 to 85 pounds, but average about 64 to 55 pounds. And their pelt, where they get the name the Red Wolf, they're typically a little bit more reddish and sparsely furred than their cousin, the coyote or the grey wolf, though there are melanistic individuals as well. And they're more sociable than coyotes, but less sociable than grey wolves. So they're very much like an in-between in terms of their behaviour, which kind of leads to that hypothesis that they may just be a hybrid. But they typically also mate January to February and have an average about 6 to 7 pups, born in March, April, May. And they are monogamous, with both parents participating in rearing and young. And denning sites include hollow tree trunks and things like that. And by the age of 6 weeks, the pups will distance themselves from the den, and then they reach full size at about a year of age, and then sexual maturity at 2 years of age. So they are, in that regard, they're very intermediate in a lot of ways compared to a lot of other wolves and coyotes, very intermediate in that regard. In terms of their diet, they would have eaten things like rabbits, um, rodents, white-tailed deer, pigs. They'll eat pigs. A lot of nutras and things that introduce species, but they'll eat raccoons, pigs, muskrats, rabbits, carrion. Large-tailed deer are largely absent from the last reserves where you will find red wolves, but they were likely, part of their prey range. As I mentioned, they were found a lot across the south and eastern US, but their range, because of hunting, really kind of went down. But likely due to a lot of... This is a great example of how zoos are helping species. Red wolves have been kept in captivity. They were considered extinct in the wild pretty much for a good bit. They kind of were really taken in by zoos, which is really cool. So they were taken in, and it was estimated about 43 of these canids captured were believed to be red wolves as well, and a lot of this pups hybrid. So there's not many pure wolves anymore, like that's kind of impossible. But the original stock was about 14 kind of brought into the captive breeding program, and the 14 were so closely related they had the genetic effect of being only 8 individuals. So the original population in the captivity is very small. But there are a lot of conservation efforts trying to help them, and there has been efforts, and they have been reintroduced in the wild. They do have a small home range now, in Georgia, I think it is. And there are, as I mentioned, there are a lot of different threats, such as coyote and wolf hybridization. People have been killing them as well. And as I mentioned, their taxonomy is really confusing. But most of the evidence, I think, suggests that they may potentially be species. There's a whole bit on the Wikipedia that you can go have a look at. But most people kind of agree that they're a species at the moment, though that is an ongoing debate, of course. And I still think it's cool to have it represented in game, and still worth protecting. There's still unique animals that still deserve protecting, regardless if they're subspecies or a full species or not. I tend to lean into the full species hypothesis, but you can interpret the evidence in different ways. But yeah, really cool. Love a red wolf. Really beautiful. I love to see red wolf going back and giving us some pretty awesome mods. I'm definitely a big fan of that. And we've got to have a look at the cute little baby. Let's have a look at the cute little baby. How adorable. But yeah, red wolves, very awesome animal and do deserve some love in a lot of ways. Okay, so that's Level Wolf, who's come back with some bloody awesome mods. But we're going to finish off with an extinct species today. We hope the red wolf got pretty close, but we're hoping they're not going to get anywhere near extinction for a good long while now. But next up, we got by Great Cakes mods, we have got Megalictus, which means great weasel, and it is certainly a great weasel, if I do say so myself. So that's the male. A really cool guy here. So the Megalictus is an extinct genus of large predatory mustelid, or type of weasel, that was existed in North America during the Cat Gap, or a time in America's history where there were no large feline predators. So other animals had to take the niche, and that's when this guy came in to kind of take that niche. They lived in the late Archean of the Miocene, between 22 to 18 million years ago, is when that early period of the Miocene. And they are quite huge. They are basically a jaguar-sized ferret, and probably got to 60 to 100 kilograms, or about 130 to 220 pounds. So quite a large animal. So the genus itself was first described by W.D. Matthews in 1907 in a assigned to them Mustelidae. It was very other similar genus were found, but it's considered synonymous with this guy. And 3 species have been identified. I believe this one's supposed to be ferox. So this is the type subspecies, but there's probably not too many differences between them. Specimens of ferox have been found in 10 sites in South Dakota, Nebraska, and Wyoming, dating to between 24 to 20 million years ago. And the 19 specimens so far have a wide range of sizes, which are believed to be evidence of extreme sexual dimorphism, where females and males are different sizes. But I've got to say, I hate the term reverse sexual dimorphism, when they say the females are bigger than males. It's not reversed, it's just sexual dimorphism, because sexual dimorphism means difference between the sexes, not difference between males and females. It's not reversed, it's just sexual dimorphism. Little rant over anyway. And a 1996 study did reject that hypothesis that these guys were multiple same species, but they were considered to be different size species. However, later studies actually came back to be consistent with sexual dimorphism. So there is an argument whether they need to be revised and stuff like that. I guess no one's really got to it again yet, but we'll carry on anyway. So Megalictus was one of the largest terrestrial mustelids ever recorded, and we've covered other large prehistoric mustelids like Ikoros and Egomelivora. We covered that one, that's like a giant honey badger, but this is mostly the largest of them all. So recorded skulls of Megalictus ferox are actually comparable to small modern jaguars, and almost as wide as black bears in some regards, is really interesting. Well, and this kind of short mouth and very, very big head, use that very big blocky head, suggests they were quite powerful bites. Together with blunt, stout canine teeth, they were well equipped to engage in osteophagy, very similar to wolverines and modern hyenas. And also been described as having short, stout legs with short feet and long, non-retractable claws, similar to that of a ferret, but twice in size. And noted that the teeth are indicate the animal is fully predaceous as wolverines, but the skeleton points to more fossorial habits, which is interesting as well. And research actually comparing the joints of its forelimb to modern mammals suggests that it was a weighted and ambush predator, so they would wait and grapple with their prey, more similar to like a saber-toothed cat, and rather than hunting it down like a cheetah. So they probably were more ambush predators, which makes sense. At the time these guys lived, America would have been much more forested, so that makes sense with their ecology, so much more ambush predators. But you can see it's almost like a wolverine that managed to finally get to be the top of the ecosystem, the apex predator, and really took that niche quite well. But I've got to say, I really do love it. Really, really nice mod. And we've got to have a look at the cute little baby. You've got to have a look at the cute little baby before we go. How can you not? That is just sacrilege if you don't. So this is the cute little baby of... Really, really cute. Definitely a big fan of this ferox, you know, came out rather nicely. So nice to see some cool extinct species getting some representation. But yeah, I don't know what's going on with my mouse today. Something's going on like that. But anyway, I think this is us finished for today. I'm going to zoom out somehow. Don't know what's going on there. There we are. Here we are. So we're zoomed out. So yeah, thank you for everyone who made these mods. You know, thank you Scott, thank you Great Cakes, thank you Kanu, and thank you Level Wolf. You've all done a really wonderful job. And yeah, I really, really, really hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Hope you guys like and subscribe. Always remember to hit the little bell icon to get notified about anything. So if you guys enjoyed this video, hope you guys like and subscribe. And bye-bye.